Locked on Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Jeremy and Clint Lochaby from Texas Football Talk. Y'all know him. Joining me on Locked on Longhorns today. It's been a very interesting last 48 hours in Longhorn Nation at the 40 acres, but it resulted in Quinn Ewers, which many people thought all along, being named the starting quarterback of the Texas Longhorns football team. So, Clint, I'm going to start with you. What ultimately went into Sark making this decision?
I think when you look at this decision, and I know we talked a little bit before this, and I think it comes back to, if you look at the last 10 years, right, a program that has lost, more than 5 games consistently. I think when you have a young class like this, and we talked about it, bringing 35 brand new guys in and trying to change over the program, I think it's really just let's rewind, let's start over again. This is officially going to be our first season with these guys. And I think when you have an opportunity to bring a guy like Quinn Ewers in, who is looked at as a redshirt freshman, but if you look at it, he probably should be a true freshman. He gives this program hope. And what I mean by that is that when you're looking at not just the quarterback position, but you're looking at the offensive line, you're looking at wide receiver and a guy like Savion Red. I think Quinn Ewers is that guy that everybody in Longhorn Nation looks as an opportunity to move forward, to kind of clean your palate over of what happened the last 10 years, because he comes in as like a 1.0000 quarterback, the number one in the nation. He's been there since his sophomore year in high school. I think I think Steve Sarkisian seen what he got in Hudson Card last year, right? And he knows what Quinn Ewers can bring to his offense, being able to stretch the field. And then rely on 5 when you need, rely on 5 and then stretch the field when it's necessary. And if you look at his throws, both in previous film, and what he was able to do in the spring game in dropping the bread into the basket, I think that's what Quinn Ewers gives you, as a starting quarterback for the University of Texas.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy. What are your thoughts on why Sark made the decision?
No, I agree with everything that Clint said. Like you said, 57 out of 85 guys are freshmen or sophomores. He can make every throw on the football field from hash mark to hash mark. He allows you to stretch the field both horizontally and vertically. But Steve Sarkisian said it himself. If I feel like that in a position that the talent is the same, then I'm going to go with the underclassmen. And we dropped a poll on Twitter just 2 days ago when the news that Hudson Card was going to be named the starter came out, and we said who's the number one quarterback? Who you got? And all we put was 1, 3, and 6, because we included Maalik Murphy. 78% Quinn Ewers, 11% Hudson Card, 11% Maalik Murphy. So the fan base, like to Clint's point, is hope, right? So you've seen the big arm, you've seen the across the field throw to Isaiah Nair, like Clint said, put it in his breadbasket, hit him in stride, touchdown. So you see that potential in him. And again, with Sark's philosophy of playing younger guys, if they're equal to or better, because you're going to get that experience through scrimmage reps, through practice reps, and through game reps, then Quinn Ewers had to be the guy. And we've been, ever since he came on campus, we felt that he was going to be the guy that's starting September 3rd against ULM.
So, Jeremy, like Clint said, I mean, Quinn Ewers is essentially a true freshman, and that's what Sark is going with on September 3rd against Louisiana Monroe. So what do you think Sark needs to do as a play caller to make sure that Quinn Ewers is able to come in and be comfortable right away and then be able to develop throughout the season?
That's a great question, Jonathan. We actually covered this last night on our show. There's a portion of the playbook where Steve Sarkisian really feels Quinn Ewers can excel, right? And so that's the part of the playbook that they're going to continue to rep, because Sark's shown that in his ability to script plays, if you go back to the first halves of ball games last year, he always puts his quarterbacks in the best position to succeed off the jump. What that last fifth of the playbook, because I'm comfortable that Quinn Ewers can execute 80% of the playbook, but there's 20% of the playbook that they're going to continue to have to rep as we go, towards the season and into the season, that once he shows that he can execute those plays, then he'll have a full playbook. The thing, if you chose Card, was you were going to have to add a run element to your playbook, because in order to develop his skill set or give him the best possible way to do the job. So I think there's 80% in that playbook right now that if you dropped it on Quinn Ewers against ULM, he's going to execute. He's going to execute very well. And if he's not, like I say, you always got 5. 5 is always a good idea. Hand the ball to Bijan, swing the ball to Bijan, use Jatavian Sanders as your security blanket and roll. But But that's it. You're just going to continue to rep that stuff to get him comfortable. And then once you see he's comfortable, then you throw it in there and let him execute during game day.
Yeah, like you said, handing the ball off to Bijan Musterson is never a bad idea, or getting it in his hands outside of the backfield. Once again, I'm gonna plug his newest NIL deal, Bijan Musterson. Make sure y'all go get some of that. I'm a yellow mustard guy myself. But Clint, so we talked about that he's gonna continue to develop throughout the season. So at what point the season do you see, maybe after the Alabama game and early on in conference play, after the Oklahoma game? When do you see Quinn Ewers really settling into this offense this season?
I think, obviously, if you're looking at the first game, it's going to be difficult to see what you're going to get in Quinn Ewers, man. You're playing a team that's, really going to give you a scrimmage atmosphere. I'm not going to take anything from ULM, but it's really a scrimmage. Week 2, you're going to see what you're going to get from Quinn Ewers. You're going to see what you're going to get from really this offense. You're going to see what you're going to get from the defense. You're going to see what you're going to get from your probably brand new left tackle, who's also going to be a true freshman in Kelvin Banks, and probably a true freshman at guard in either Cole Hudson or DJ Campbell. So I think week 2 is really going to give you an opportunity to see where you're at with Quinn Ewers. Because I think Steve Sarkisian's obviously from an offensive game plan is going to come in with a really good offense, but you're also probably going against the number 1 defense in the country. So I think what I'm looking for in Quinn Ewers really in that Alabama game is, how does he protect the ball? Does he throw the ball out of bounds without taking a sack? Is he able to move around the pocket and throw off platform to make throws? But I think it really happens after UTSA. UTSA is going to be a tough game too. They're obviously coming to DKR, had a really good, had a really good season last year. They're bringing back a lot of talent on that football team, but I think it really goes into that first week of Big 12 football. He should have it all together by then. And I think what you're going to see from Steve Sarkisian is not going to be the flip. Let's flip it back and forth between quarterbacks. And that's what we need to see. And I think if you brought Hudson Card in, if you started Hudson Card, that's what you were going to see, because what you didn't want to see is like a Spencer Rattler, Williams situation in the Red River rivalry, where he's a disaster. Spencer Rattler's a disaster, and everybody's calling for Williams to come in. I think Caleb Williams to come in. You had to do that if you were Steve Sarkisian, if you name Hudson Card the quarterback. I think with Quinn Ewers, you got a longer rope, longer leash. He's going to be able to, and I think fans will be okay with him making bad decisions and throwing interceptions versus having Hudson Card come in and do the same thing.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I think if Hudson Card was named the starter, he was going to have to exceed expectations to meet expectations, right? Like he was going to have to go out there and be a top 10 quarterback in the country for people not to call for Quinn Ewers. Jeremy, I want to ask you the same question. When do you see at any point in this season Quinn Ewers really being comfortable and locking into this playbook, and we seeing kind of the full version of Quinn we haven't seen since maybe South Lake Hero?
So Clint talked about Alabama being the litmus test, right? The challenge. And that's important. But every football game, every repetition that Quinn Ewers, every snap that he takes to the University of Texas is going to be growth. Again, like you said, he's essentially a true freshman. He's in the same class as I see as Maalik Murphy. That year at Ohio State really didn't get him an opportunity to see the field. He got 2 plays, hand the football off. So there wasn't any true, and he got there super late. Like he got there right as fall camp was ending. So there wasn't a whole lot of. So the way I'm looking at it is his first season is with the University of Texas. And I wrote big game manager with big play potential. What Steve Sarkisian is going to ask him to do early in the season is to manage the game, to walk the line of scrimmage pre-snap, figure out where I'm supposed to go with the football and go there. But again, with that big play potential comes what Clint was talking about, the opportunity for interceptions. But I truly believe with 5 in the backfield, with Xavier Worthy outside, there's going to be receivers open. He just has to decide pre-snap where that guy's going to be. If it's going to be Jatavian Sanders, because, again, I think he's going to be a mismatch as well this year. So I'm looking at 8, I'm looking at 0, and I'm looking at 5 to help me get through those first 3 games. But I think by the time conference season rolls around, just like Clint does, they're going to go full playbook, and he's going to have an understanding through getting those snaps against ULM, Alabama, and UTSA to be able to have that playbook at his full disposal and really then exercise what's necessary to help Texas win football games.
So, Jeremy, I'm going to ask you then, what are your expectations for Quinn Ewers this season now that you know he's going to be the starting quarterback on day one?
So last night I talked about around 36 to 40 touchdowns and somewhere around 9 to probably 14, 15 interceptions. I think he'll be right around probably a pick a game. I hope he's under. My initial thoughts were 36 and 12. But I think he has the potential to throw 3 touchdowns a game and throw 1.1 to 1.25 interceptions per game. That's why I got the 40 and 12 or 40 and 12 to 14, somewhere in there.
Okay. What about you, Clint? What are your expectations for Quinn Ewers this season?
I think if you go back and look at Colt McCoy, you go back and look at Sam Ehlinger in the years that they played, obviously their redshirt freshman years. I think you're going to get the same thing. I think you're going to see the whoa plays, the big wow plays. But I think you're going to take bumps. You're going to have bumps and bruises along the way. I've said it. I don't think there's a difference between. I'll kind of give you this prediction here. I don't think there was a prediction in games for me that you won if it was Hudson Card or Quinn Ewers. They were going to be a starter. I think either way. And I know we may talk a little defense on here. I think you're probably about an 8-4 team with either one of those guys, because again, you went out and scored 36 points per game last year. And I think Casey Thompson's going to go do well at Nebraska. No doubt. I think he's going to do really well there. But I just think that Quinn Ewers brings something different. I think those passes you missed last year is not going to be a thing over and over and over again. Running, guys, wide receivers running out of bounds in Baylor on a perfectly thrown pass because it sells out of bounds versus staying in bounds, and could have put you up 28-3 at one particular point in a couple of games. I just think that this year he's going to have an opportunity to break the touchdown passing record. I can tell you that for the University of Texas, because just Steve Sarkisian being your offensive coordinator. But I think the bumps and bruises and the interceptions are going to come. I probably won't give a prediction on how many touchdowns he's going to get versus interceptions. You would like to see probably a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio in that. And I think that's kind of where Jeremy's at. I think 3-to-1 ratio is good.
Yeah, 17th in scoring last year with shaky quarterback play and shaky O-line play. Jeremy, that was interesting from Clint. He said that he doesn't necessarily feel that there's a difference in wins maybe at this point between Hudson Card being the starter and Quinn Ewers being the starter. What do you think?
I don't think, again, we were 8-4, 9-3 guys right there. And I agree with Clint. I just think there's tough road games when you're talking about Kansas State, Oklahoma State. You still got that Alabama game on your schedule. You still have Oklahoma on your schedule. So I am still at 9-3, 8-4. Again, I just think it'll be the boom. I'll say that the boom factor or the ability to get to a double-digit win total increases. I'm just not for sure 100% confident enough to say that it's worth 1 win, it's worth 2 wins. I'm still at that 8-4, 9-3, but I think the potential to get to that double digit is increased with him being the starter.
Yeah, I think the ceiling's higher. I definitely think the ceiling's higher with Quinn Ewers versus Hudson Card. I think Hudson Card was going to give you that established, where I see it 8-4 is really the ceiling as it sits today. But I think, like Jeremy's talking about, boom factor. If you play fantasy football, there's a boom factor down there, right? That says, okay, this guy has an opportunity to go this way, or he has an opportunity to go this way. And I think that with Quinn Ewers, I think that boom factor pushes more to the right than to the left in that. So I think your potential to win more games, I think you have potential of winning more games with Quinn Ewers versus Hudson Card. But right now, as it sits, I think that an established 8-4 season is showing growth in the program that went 5-7 last year.
Yeah, so that's exactly where I'm at with it too. I was gonna say 9-3, because 9-3 was based off of what I thought Quinn Ewers would be able to accomplish in Sark's offense, through a full offseason of development and just with his talent level this season. When if Hudson Card would have been named the starter, I was going to go down to 8-4. And that has really nothing to do with Hudson Card. It was just more so, like I said, 9-3 was based off of what I thought Quinn would be able to do and what would be brought to the quarterback position this year. And so I kind of would have scaled that back if Hudson Card would have been named the starter. But once again, has nothing to do with his skill set. It's just more so, like you talked about, the boom potential with Quinn Ewers. But we know that. Go ahead, Jeremy.
And I think that's how we kind of projected the season. Like I said, from the time Quinn came on campus, we've always had him as what we felt was going to be the starting quarterback because of, like I said, the arm talent and the potential and the lower floor and the higher ceiling. So, and listen to you say that, I think we were kind of in the same spot. We always envisioned that 3 was going to be taking snaps with 5 behind him and the guys outside. And because he has now been named the starter, I guess that's why it really doesn't change our prediction so much. But again, I think he does give you the potential to sneak up and win some games that you thought that they might lose. And again, I think they're as talented as any team in the conference. And I think this conference is as wide open as it's been in a long, long time. So there is a chance that they could exceed expectations. But again, we've gone into every season since we've been doing our podcast with burnt orange glasses, and we're just choosing not to do it this year.
Yeah, well, this is my first season, so I still got them on. So we know that Hudson Card, this is football. It's a contact sport. And the reality is at this point, Hudson Card Quinn Ewers is one hit away from Hudson Card getting some significant playing time and Sark having to rely on Hudson Card this season. So what does this decision mean for Hudson Card just moving forward, maybe this season and moving forward? I'll start with Clint.
Yeah, obviously Hudson Card wants to graduate from the University of Texas, man. He's currently in the McCombs Business School. And I don't think this specifically changes that. I think he's going to graduate from University of Texas. And more than likely as a grad transfer next year, he's going to probably be a graduate transfer and he's probably going to go off and play quarterback somewhere else. I think that's where you see it now. I think what's important now is the growth of Maalik Murphy. And as Jeremy said the poll earlier, and I think when you looked at it, it was like 78%, 11-11. And who would have thought that Maalik Murphy would have got the same amount of votes that not like it's a damn presidential election or anything, but got the same amount of votes as Hudson Card. But that tells you what the fan base thinks about Maalik Murphy as well. And so I think it's not so much what happens with Hudson Card, because I truly think that he's going to sit through the season. He's going to be your number 2 quarterback this year. But I think it's the growth of Maalik Murphy and how he grows through the season and what reps he gets. And eventually I have it, and I'll say it again. I think there's a point where, again, he's a pro-style quarterback. Maalik Murphy is a guy that Sarkisian went out and recruited. He pinpointed him out of California. He brought him in here. His size is unbelievable, right? But I think if you look at it, it would not surprise me by the end of the year, knowing what Steve Sarkisian it may have to deal with next year in Maalik Murphy and Quinn Ewers, and obviously, an Arch Manning situation, that Maalik Murphy doesn't move himself up to that number 2 as he starts learning the playbook and he gets more repetitions. And because you can't doubt Maalik Murphy's talent. You cannot doubt his arm talent. The problem with Maalik Murphy is the 2020 season that was cut short. Playing with guys that playing on a team that didn't have the same athletes that a Quinn Ewers did it. Obviously, South Lake Carroll there in up in the north in the DFW area. But I think that's the way you look at it. I don't think it's so much worried about Hudson Card. Yeah, he's going to have to be your number 2 if Quinn Ewers goes out there and injures a thumb or hurts his toe or one of those things. But I think it's the growth of Maalik Murphy through the season that really matters.
Jeremy, what does Quinn Ewers being named the starter mean for Hudson Card this year and moving forward?
I don't think it means too much different. I mean, he was a great teammate for Casey Thompson last year. Like, he lost his job mid-season and continued to be a good teammate for Casey Thompson. He wasn't really returning as the starting quarterback of the University of Texas. He was showing back up to spring ball as a guy competing for the job. So if his expectation was just to walk in and take it, I don't think that's true. And I think, like Clint said, he's enrolled in the McCombs Business School. He's going to get his degree from the University of Texas. He's going to be a good teammate to Quinn Ewers, and he's going to be prepared to go in the ball game in case something happens to Quinn and he has to come out of the ball game. He'll go in there and execute his game plan. But like Clint said, looking towards the future and putting that poll out, it's just, I think folks have a bad taste in their mouth of Hudson Card's performance against Arkansas last year that leads them yearning for Quinn Ewers and even Maalik Murphy because their upside they feel is higher. And Clint's talking about Maalik's disadvantage of playing at Sarah with a less than efficient offensive line, lack of receivers on the outside, and he still found a way to will him to a state championship. And his arm strength is undoubted. Like Clint said, he's got the frame, 6'6", 225 pounds. Like, he's everything that a coach would like to have in their quarterback room. But I think Hudson's going to be a great teammate this year and do what he's supposed to do and be that sounding board for Quinn when it's necessary.
Yeah. Let me mention betonline.net before they kick me off this show. You know, if you want to bet on the over or under for Texas football wins this season, if you want to bet on Quinn Ewers winning the Heisman, or if you want to bet on Texas getting to the Big 12 championship game or winning the Big 12 championship game. All right. So we've talked for 20 minutes about the offense. Of course, the quarterback's the most important position in football. You know, everybody cares about the offense, just like chicks dig the long ball in baseball. But this is a defense that was in the triple digits last year, and a lot of people are wondering what this defense is going to look like this year. You know, they brought in a lot of additions personnel-wise and coaching-wise when you look at Gary Patterson, which is a big name as well. And we heard that, you know, albeit in practices and scrimmages, this defense was giving both quarterbacks trouble, Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card. So, Jeremy, I'll start with you. What are your expectations for the defense this season?
Thank you for asking me this question, because to me, it depends on the defensive line. I really feel like this linebacker core with Jalen Ford and Diamante Tucker-Dorsey is going to be solid enough to allow DeMarvion Overshown to do what they want him to do, and that's be versatile, be that Micah Parsons chess piece that identifies mismatches pre-snap and takes advantage of the opponent's weaknesses. It's all going to come down to Keandre Coburn, Devondre Sweat, Moro Jomo, and all that experience, along with Byron Murphy, who's a stud, and Vernon Broughton, who's balling out this fall. And what kind of pressure can they put on the quarterback, and can they get that 5.2 yards per carry they gave up last year down to that mid-4 range? That's what I'm looking for, because I think all the guys in the back end can cover. We actually did our defensive back preview this morning, and Steve Sarkisian has moved, and Gary Patterson and Pete Witkowski have decided to move a guy like Anthony Cook back to safety because he has experience in both the nickel and boundary corners. So they're looking for coverage skills back there. They're looking to press man. But Keandre Coburn said it himself yesterday in the media availability. It's on us. Like, we have to put pressure on the quarterback. We have to make him uncomfortable. We have to get him off time to allow our defensive backs, because he said it was unfair to them last year that their lack of pressure caused the defensive backs to suffer because they had to cover for longer periods of time. We all know it's coordination, right? The front end and the back end have to work together to have a solid defense. So to me, the most pivotal position on the football team this year that I'm going to be looking at, starting with ULM and going forward, is the defensive line.
All right, so the defensive line, and then who are you looking for to be that impact player on the defensive line, or the most important player on that D-line this year?
So to me, it's interior. I don't care who your 1 and your 3 are, whether it's Keandre Coburn, Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, whoever you play at the 1 and the 3, they have to be more productive. Like, 12 games, 12 tackles is not good enough. I could have fell into 12 tackles last year, like one tackle per game. That group has to get better. The pressure rate has to come up. The guys I'm looking to be superstars are the guys they're talking about, the Byron Murphys, the Baron Sorrells, Ovia Gofus. I think we're going to be okay with that perimeter pressure. It's just like, who's going to step up in the interior? Because I've seen Moro Jomo make splash plays. I've seen Alfred Collins make splash plays. Who's going to be that guy that's going to be consistent, play in, play out? All the names that Keandre was talking about yesterday are the guys I'm going to be looking at. But my impact player from interior would be Byron Murphy. Outside, it's going to be Baron Sorrell. You get to the linebackers, it's Jalen Ford. And then probably in the secondary, it's Jahdae Barron.
Clint, who's the most important player on the defense going into the 2022 season?
You had to ask me second. He didn't name all of them. So I'll go a little different here. It's funny because we did our defensive back preview today. And if you look at this coaching staff, and I think you brought up Gary Patterson as a person that is both looking at the offense and what Steve Sarkisian runs from an offensive standpoint, but coming in and helping, obviously PK with that defense. And if we start naming a whole bunch of guys, I think versatility is the key word here. I think versatility is from, not just from the inside guys that have played either, outside or inside. I think they have versatility there. But I think if you look at the linebackers, you have a guy like DeMarvion Overshown that's going to give you that versatility, because now you can lean on a guy like, Tucker Dorsey and Jalen Ford, who showed splash plays last year at the end of the year, man, and carried that out through the spring game and then into the fall. But if you look at the defensive backs, I think versatility is absolutely important. We actually went through this morning. And so I'm going to plug this real quick. Make sure you go watch our defensive back previews here. All right. So if you look at it, Anthony Cook, nickel, corner, safety. If you look at Jaron Thompson, safety, nickel. If you look at Jahdae Barron, corner, nickel. I think that this defensive back is going to be probably outside of the the defensive front. I think the defensive back is going to show some trajectory we haven't seen in a long time from the defensive program. Jeremy gave you the micro. I'm going to give you the macro. I think if you have a good to average defense, you win a whole bunch of football games. I don't need you to be the top 25 defense in the country. Hell, it may not even need you to be the top 50 team in the country. But what I need them to do is limit the points per game, because this offense is going to be able to score points. There's no reason that you should go out and be able to score. This is going to make people angry. 50 points versus Kansas, but then you lose against Kansas, right? There's no reason for you to be up at half against Oklahoma and then not make adjustments, and that's going to be a big piece of it too. Outside of players, it's making adjustments through in-game adjustments to be able to stop with the offensive coordinators adjusting to your defense. So I think if you have a good to average defense this year, you win a whole bunch of games. Just like if you have a good to average offensive line, you win a lot of games as well.
So a lot of freshmen are going to play this year on the offensive side and defensive side on the ball. So which freshman do you think, I'll start with you, Jeremy, which freshman do you think will have the biggest impact? I was going to say on the defensive side, but just period on this football team this year. Let's go offense and defense. Which freshman do you think will have the biggest impact?
That's a great question. Of course, since I get to go first, I'll take Kelvin Banks for offense because I know he's a surefire starter. Because I'm not including Quinn. Let's just take that out. If I could include Quinn as a true freshman, I'd probably take him. Everybody would take him. And then I'm going to go with the guy who's third on my list up here that I'm looking at, and that's Jalen Gilbo. Because you gave me a defensive freshman, and I just know that everything you're hearing from fall camp says this guy is competing at every spot. Like he's competing with Deshaun Jameson at the boundary corner, and then you hear he's competing with Jahdae Barron in the slot. So I'm going to take the two easy ones and go with Kelvin Banks and Jalen Gilbo. Sorry, Clint.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
I got two guys.
Give me two.
Offense. I'll go Savion Red. Everybody's obviously talking about Savion Red and what he can do. He's like another Jordan Whittington. It's crazy because we actually seen Jordan Whittington at an event a couple of weekends ago, and he's a wide receiver in a running back's body, and I think that's what Savion Red gives you. But I think he gives you a little bit more. I think he gives you a little bit more of an open field threat than what Jay Witt gives you, Jordan Whittington gives you. On the defense side of the ball, I'm going to go with, and it's crazy because I was actually looking at film of Kelvin Banks this morning, and there's a gentleman by the name of Justice Finkley that gave Kelvin Banks,
friend of the show. He took him off.
That gave Kelvin Banks all he wanted in a future 50 event. If you have an opportunity to go back and watch that, it's going to make some Texas Longhorn fans sad to see what Justice Finkley did to Kelvin Banks. But I think it's also a positive because, like people talk about, iron sharpens iron, right? And if you got a guy like Justice Finkley or Jamon Tapp that's going against, and these are guys who are true freshmen, you got that are going against true freshmen like DJ Campbell and Kelvin Banks and Cole Hudson, it's going to make them all better. But I'm gonna go on the offensive side of the ball, Savion Red. I'm gonna go defensive ball. I'm gonna go Justice Finkley, man. I think Justice Finkley is going to shine this year.
Yeah, shout out to Justice Finkley. Shout out to Dr. Finkley, friends of the show. That definitely was going to be mine. But I'm going to stay at the edge position, and I'm going to go with Jamon Tapp. You mentioned him. Just something about those Louisiana boys, right? They just got a different grit sometimes and a different dog in them. And I think he's going to be a dog coming off that edge. And then on the offensive side, it's simple. Quinn Ewers' arm with 10-2 speed at receiver, right? I'm going Brendan Thompson, right? I think just his ability to get downfield. He's going to score some deep touchdowns this year. So those are going to be my offensive and defensive superstars as far as true freshmen, but we all named some good names. So
I'm waiting to see what that head nod. I'm waiting to see what that head nod looks like between Brendan Thompson and Quinn Ewers, man. It's honestly it has that nonverbal. It's almost like, hey, just go, man. Like go, and run past your quarterback or run past cornerback, man. And I'm just going to throw it up in the air, man, fall under it. I'm with you on that one too, man. So
yeah. So really quickly, it's 10:27 on August 20th, Saturday morning, as we're recording this breakfast edition of Locked On Longhorns. The team should be participating in their second scrimmage right now. So just Clint and Jeremy, I'll start with you, Jeremy. What are you looking to hear or see or to develop out of today's scrimmage, if anything?
Snap counts. I feel like I got a good idea of what the two deep looks or the starters look like on offense. We've named a ton of them, and without going through it, the guys know who I'm going to mention. But the defensive snap counts, like they're talking about the two deep and versatility and being able to switch out from first to second teams without having a drop off in talent. But I think here's where you start to see the starting quarterback. And I think that's why it was important to name him before this final scrimmage, because next week is game prep. Next week is preparation for ULM, putting in the packages, and you're going to see the snap count go to probably 80% Ewers, 20% Card. But I think I want that to start today. So I'm really interested in hearing about snap counts, and I'm really interested about hearing in the defensive performance. I feel like I have a good understanding of who's going to start on offense now that the offensive line with Junior getting hurt is pretty much solidified. You know who the starting tight end, the receivers are going to be, and Bijan's in the backfield now that Quinn's been named. It's going to be who are we getting a 3-3-5? Are we looking at 4 down linemen? Are we looking at 2 down linemen? Do we have the depth at backer to be able to run some of those schemes? And then just really looking at the defensive side of the ball and what reports come out from there.
Clint, what are you looking forward to hearing out of today's scrimmage?
Well, I hope we hear something at all with the source situation going on right now at the University of Texas program. And I'm going to throw that out there. Man, I talked to Jeremy about that this morning. I'm sorry, Jonathan, but I had to say it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's true. How many people are going to hold on to their stories is the question. The guys that have insider information, how many guys are going to hold on to their stories, right? That's a true thing now, right? And I think Steve Sarkisian is creating a similar situation to what Nick Saban does with the media at Alabama, with rat poison and all this other stuff. And I think he's trying to get control of this program and what information is put out. Just wanted to say that first. What I want to see today, it's okay to get bumps and bruises, man. It's okay to get bumps and bruises, feel tired. But number one on my list today, we cannot afford injuries out of this second scrimmage. Right, this second scrimmage is probably going to be the toughest one. That first one, you're probably hitting each other hard. The second one, you're probably hitting each other even harder today. So to me, it's number one is injuries. We can't afford any other big injuries coming out this weekend. And then 2, I think it's really how many. And I think it goes back to what Jeremy said. What's the snap count look like for Quinn Ewers versus Hudson Card in today's scrimmage? You've named the quarterback at this point. Is it 60-40? Is it 80-20? But also going back to my Maalik Murphy thing, how many does Maalik Murphy start getting reps with the threes? Because at some particular point, you may have 1 injury or 2 injuries, but you always want to have that third quarterback available. And I think it's important they start naming who that third quarterback is and how many reps he gets and who he gets those reps with.
Clint and Jeremy Lochaby from Texas Football Talk. Let them know where they can find you.
All right, I'll do the outro here. I'm one that usually does it. So you can find us on Facebook at Texas Football Talk, on Instagram at Texas Football Talk, and on Twitter at TX Football Talk. If you go to YouTube, you can type in Texas Football Talk. When you're there, please hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 4,000, man. We're about 150, I think 150 short from September 3rd. Our goal is to hit 4,000 subscribers by the end of or before the beginning of the season. So please, go over there and find us as well. And we're going to have Jonathan on our live. We've already told him today, man, we're going to have Jonathan on a live coming up soon. This was really fun, by the way, to do this with you. Really, really organized. We did a lot of conversation before the show, which was really, really good.
A little pregame.
Yeah, a little pregame before the show, which was really good. We'll keep that inside our little talk there, but we definitely appreciate you, Jonathan, for having us on today.
Yes, sir. Help them get to 4,000. One of the best channels as far as Longhorn content creators. They said that about 150 away. Texas Football Talk on YouTube. Make sure y'all go hit that subscribe button and get them to 4,000. And like he said, you'll see me on their channel as well this season. Big things happening at the 40. Quinn Ewers is the starter of this football team. As always,